1, 2, is this on?
Wrestling is unique in that performers can be involved in the creative process just as much as the writers and bookers.
We pitched it, Vince loved it, and it became like one of the bedrock stories of my career.
The collaborative nature of pitching ideas means that angles, storylines, and gimmicks can be thought of by one wrestler, but then given to someone else by the higher-ups.
I seen Stephanie, and I'm grabbing her, and she's all in, and I'm laying this whole thing out, and she's like, my God, you wrote this? I don't even get home. There's some fax on my fax machine about me signing release to the idea. So I call him, said, let's signing a release to this idea. The reason why I did it is because you got to use me.
This has happened plenty of times over the years, where the talent who hatched the original pitch was left empty-handed.
I had a lot of really green heel tag teams, and I had pitched this as a babyface tag team option where we could really carry these guys. And like, no, we see you both as, singles guys. So they didn't do the angle, and then 2 months later, Hurricane's in an angle with the superhero in training. I'm like, fuck me.
Meanwhile, their peers benefited from an idea that wasn't even meant for them.
And we went to John, like, this looks a lot like what we just gave you on a DVD. Did we just get screwed? He's like, no. Don't even worry about it. This is something totally different. Then the next week, the storyline progressed. And it was basically our pitch, but with is and true.
Today, we'll showcase various examples as we look at 10 allegedly stolen ideas that were given to other wrestlers.
They took that idea and they gave it to CM Punk. So these scumbags are so inept in their jobs. They're taking other people's ideas and trying to pass them off as if they are theirs.
One of the most common ways ideas are stolen in wrestling happens when a mid-carder suggests something for themselves, but their idea ends up being used for a main eventer instead. This is what happened to Elias in early 2020, during a period where he wasn't being used. In a bid to transition away from his guitar-playing persona, Elias wanted to be a messiah-like cult leader with his own heel faction. He discussed these plans while speaking to Inside the Ropes.
I had the audience already singing along with me and doing my catchphrases. They love to play along, so I thought, well, let me be the cult leader, the Pied Piper that, switches things and becomes a little bit more biblical and like Old Testament eye for eye stuff. And I got my guys here that go and carry out my missions. I had a lot of hopes for that character. I had brought it to the team. I had a whole plan and way to involve people and have my own disciples and stuff like that. It was the Monday Night Messiah.
Elias was told no by the creative team after laying out his new gimmick.
And they just kind of came to me and said, we don't see you doing that. Okay.
Sure enough, just a few weeks later, a near carbon copy of Elias' potential character was given to someone higher up on the card.
And then 2 weeks later, it was like, they've got like the pane glass visuals for Seth, and they're calling him the Monday Night Messiah. And I'm like, what?
The Hurricane was paired with a fair few different sidekicks during his run with WWE. He had done some stuff with Lance Storm in 2001, which Lance suggested they could revisit 2 years later. Storm had played the straight man to Hurricane's antics in 01, but this time, the Canadian pitched becoming an actual superhero.
Hurricane would be in a match or whatever and get jumped. And I would have the mask superhero outfit, and I would run in and make the save, and then I would leave, and then Hurricane would come back into the locker room. When he came into the locker room, it would just be me in my regular outfit. And he'd be like, oh, thanks, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's like, I would deny it's me. And there would be this secret child inside, this serious fake front that Lance Storm has always put up. And teaming with Hurricane that one time, the times we did earlier sort of sparked the, hey, this could be fun. I had a lot of really green heel tag teams. And I had pitched this as a babyface tag team option where we could really carry these guys. And like, no, we see you both as, singles guys. So they didn't do the angle.
Rosie would soon become the superhero in training, while Lance was given a bad dancing gimmick that ultimately led to his retirement from active competition.
And then 2 months later, Hurricane's in an angle with the superhero in training. I'm like, fuck me. And then I think shortly after that, I got put into a tag team with Val Venus, and I'm just like, yeah, thanks, guys.
Rosie did well as a sidekick, but it would have been more interesting to see Storm in the role, given his history with Hurricane, as well as the strong idea Lance put forth. Mickie James' romantic attraction to Trish Stratus in 2005 borrowed from the film Single White Female. Shortly before Mickie's debut, a storyline based around this movie had been suggested by former WCW wrestler Lenny Lane. Lenny had been working dark matches for WWE when he pitched an angle that would have seen him infatuated with Chris Jericho. Both Jericho and Paul Heyman were receptive to the idea, but Lane needed to run it by Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. Lenny told the story to Wrestling Then and Now.
Basically, I said, hey, I'd like you to talk, when I talk to Stephanie about this idea I have, I'd like you to be there too and give me some of your input on there. He goes, oh yeah, after the match, sure, we'll do it after the show. So of course, after the show, he's in there showering and gone wrong. I seen Stephanie and I'm grabbing her and she's all in and I'm laying this whole thing out. And she's like, my God, you wrote this?
Lane believes his mistake was going to Stephanie first and not talking to Hunter and Steph together like he initially planned.
I go to grab myself and Hunter's coming out. He goes, oh, let's go find Steph now and we'll go tell her. I go, oh, man, I couldn't find you. I grabbed her because I know you guys are short on time. I know what's happening here when I tell him I've already talked to her. And I could just see the look on his face like, oh, you did? I'm like, oh, yeah, I did. I don't even get home. There's some facts on my fax machine about me signing release to the idea, right? So I call him, said, let's sign a release of this idea. The reason why I did it is because you got to use me.
It was a case of bad timing for Lenny, since Mickie James had already told Michael Hayes and Vince about a storyline where she would stalk Lita. This was then changed to Trish, as the stalking aspect was combined with the single white female idea put forth by Lane. James explained the process she went through in an interview with Chris Van Vliet.
Then I wrote it and I sat down and I wrote like 18 weeks of TV of like this character and how she's going to be like. She's super fan. She's so excited. And then I didn't hear anything back for like 6 months. And then they brought me in and they were like, hey, we're going to do that character. We want to do that character. And I was like, okay, cool. He was like, yeah, but we're going to do it with Trish. And I was like, oh.
Lenny never ended up signing for WWE. Meanwhile, Mickie and Trish's storyline received critical acclaim and universal praise from fans. Our next example was also thought of by two different people, independent of each other. We're referring to the Val Venus gimmick, which the Blue Meanie said he and Al Snow devised in ECW.
And we're watching Danny Doring wrestle. We're like, oh, this guy just looks sleazy, right? And, we're coming up with all these different characters, and we go up to Paul and go, hey, Paul, we thought this idea for Danny Doring. He goes, put your hand up. That's a wonderful idea. We will do that. And then 6 months later, hello, ladies. Oh, we're like, Danny's finisher should be the money shot. And you're like, that's a great idea.
The Meanie believes Paul Heyman gave the idea to WWF. Vince Russo, who was the Federation's head writer in 1998, said he came up with Val's persona because Venus looks so much like an adult film star. So just like with our previous entry, two things can be true at once.
I tell Vince, I say, Vince, this is all I got. And I lay out Val Venus. He's a porn star, this and that. And bro, like, Vince's face went from, like, I can't believe you're pitching this to, I love this.
Paul Burchill would frequently suggest things to creative, only for his ideas to be used for other wrestlers. This happened so often that the term Burchill was coined backstage to describe an instance where talent had their idea given to someone else.
We had a term that we used called being Burchilled, because Paul Burchill would pitch stuff all the time and creative would just take it and wouldn't give it to him to give it to somebody else.
One such example would have seen Paul team up with his on-screen sister Katie Lee to face Intercontinental Champion Kofi Kingston and Women's Champ Mickie James in a double title match. The match ended up happening at SummerSlam 2008, only with Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix in the place of Paul and Katie Lee. The Burchills were instead used as fodder for the champions in the build to the pay-per-view. Following this, Katie Lee continued to work in the women's division. Paul kept losing matches on Raw before being taken off television for 3 months, until he was then put on ECW. So all in all, Burchill's idea was taken, he was jobbed out, removed from TV, and then demoted to the third brand. The former Tyler REKS has spoken about a time when the team of REKS and Kurt Hawkins got Burchilled by John Cena. In an interview with Lewis Nichols, REKS describes a storyline that was pitched to Cena, so John could then inform the higher-ups on Hawkins and REKS' behalf. The story would have seen the team get fired and removed from the arena after trying to get back in. The duo was struggling to get on TV, so Kurt used his friendship with Cena to try and change that.
His idea was to get fired as a storyline. And then what would happen is we would get fired and we would start sneaking back in the arenas. And John had a good conversation with us. He was like, this is a killer idea, man. This is great. Can you put all this on a DVD? Yeah, let's do it. So we put it all on a DVD. We cut some promos, kind of outlining what we wanted to do. Got it all done in a night. And he goes, get me that CD. He takes the CD. Because I'm on the jet with Vince tonight, and we're going to talk about it. Guess who got fired the next week on Raw? It was Miz and Truth.
All Hawkins and REKS' work had been for nothing, since they continued doing jobs on the C shows while rarely appearing on Raw or SmackDown. Cena even admitted that Hawkins and REKS had been well and truly Burchilled.
And we went to John, like, hey John, this looks a lot like what we just gave you on a DVD. Did we just get screwed? He's like, no. Don't even worry about it. This is something totally different. Then the next week, the storyline progressed. It was basically our pitch, but with Miz and Truth. With John as the main, with the guy who got jumped at the end. At one point, we're 3 weeks into this thing that is obviously our pitch, and Hawk is good. Yo, Cena, did we just get Burchill? He's like, yeah, you did. blatantly telling us that he stole our stuff and used it and just left us at the bottom. We're like, cool, man, I'm definitely never talking to you again.
Donovan DIJAK had a hard time establishing a rapport with Vince McMahon. Despite multiple meetings and numerous attempts to conform with Vince, the chairman didn't go for anything DIJAK pitched. DIJAK then tried suggesting something he knew the old man had an interest in. In an interview with Chris Van Vliet, DIJAK describes how he utilized McMahon's tendency to associate wrestlers with animals.
But just him in general, he has these like weird, like primal obsessions. So I'm like, okay, and I'm going through the list of animals in my head. I'm like, okay, that animal's taken, that animal's taken. I'm like, what animal's available? I'm like, I got it, a lion. No one's ever been a lion in WWE that I can recall. And I showed him this whole thing, and he's like, all right, go out there and be the lion. Show me the lion. And I was like, okay. So I went out and wrestled like a lion. I don't know what that means, but I was like grabbing the guy really aggressively, like he was my prey or something.
Now, with Vince finally invested in something he was doing, things were looking up for DIJAK after months of being lost in the shuffle. However, these hopes were dashed no sooner than they began. That's because the lion moniker was given to someone the company wanted to push. All the while, DIJAK stayed confined to the C shows.
2 or 3 weeks later, it was like, he's here, Veer is coming, Veer the lion. And I was like, right? So I'm not going to say without a shadow of a doubt that he like took that and said, I'm giving this to, but like maybe the seed was planted and he forgot about it and they were at a meeting and he was thinking about lions and he came out, whatever. I don't know how it works.
Yeah. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson were in a similar boat to DIJAK. On the Talk and Shop podcast, the duo said that Vince doesn't want to see guys in his office that aren't in his plans.
People say she should have gone into Vince's office more, and it's like, he doesn't want to see guys that he doesn't want in his office. He's just going to be fucking annoyed. He wants AJ in there because he wants to do something with AJ. But does he want fucking Carl and Gallows in there saying, do something with us? Fuck no, man.
Gallows and Anderson learned this the hard way in 2017. They brought an angle to McMahon that would have seen them jump Enzo Amore and Big Cass in a backstage brawl that involved vehicles.
I went in one time, I think myself and Big Cass, to pitch an idea. We had a good little tag storyline going, and we had this idea, and we wanted to get some heat on him outside of just something in the backstage area or in the ring, and we wanted to do this deal in the parking lot. And you guys have heard this story interviewing wrestlers 100 times, and we came up with something I thought was pretty clever. I don't remember the exact logistics of it, and great, I love it, awesome. And then if you're not the guys they want that idea for, we saw a very similar idea used the following week on Raw. That's what happens when you go in there and they're not looking to, use you in that light or whatever. And it happens a lot.
The WWE ended up doing a similar segment with Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman, which was one of the top feuds on Raw. As for Gallows and Anderson, they were kept on the back burner and didn't feature in any storylines or pay-per-views for the remainder of the year. As we've seen, the lower a wrestler is on the pecking order, the more likely their ideas are going to be given to someone that's being pushed. Loki, aka KAVAL, learned this working for WWE in 2010. He had laid out a scenario where he would wear a mask, with the aim of wrestling Rey Mysterio in a mask versus mask match. At WrestleMania 27, Loki detailed his intentions in an interview with That's Wrestling.
I would end up getting Rey Mysterio fired and end up becoming a bad Rey Mysterio clone. Rey actually hooked up a conference call between he and I and Michael Hayes, and Michael Hayes said, wow, that was really well thought out. Thank you for doing that. And what did they do? They took that idea and they gave it to CM Punk, which had him putting on a mask, of which ultimately Big Show ends up taking off that mask. So these scumbags are so inept in their jobs, they're taking other people's ideas and trying to pass them off as if they are theirs.
Matt Hardy and MVP's rivalry was one of the best storylines on SmackDown in 2007, but it was originally supposed to be Mr. Kennedy feuding with Matt in an identical scenario. MVP revealed this on his Marking Out podcast.
Matt told me about the idea, asked Ken if he'd be cool if Matt pitched it for us. Of course, Ken, yeah, go do it. We pitched it, Vince loved it, and it became like one of the bedrock stories of my career.
So that, if Mr. Kennedy wasn't injured, that could have potentially been him and Matt.
Ken, as tag teams feuding over the U.S. title. But in this case, it worked.
This was one of the numerous times that injury took Kennedy out of creative plans, though at least this time he was able to pass on a storyline to his friends, as Ken gave MVP permission to take his place.
And no disrespect to Ken, Ken's my guy. It would have been great with them because they're such tremendously talented guys. But I think the contrast with me and Matt probably made it work a little bit better.
Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our similar video on 10 brutal WWE pranks that went way too far. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.